Sometimes the best stories in golf aren't found on tour. You'll find them at the back of the range. And here's your host, Ben Adelberg.
And once again, welcome to the back of the range. I am your host, Ben Adelberg. This is episode 207. I'm back home in South Florida after quite possibly one of the most memorable trips of my life. It all started when I left home on July 20th for North Carolina. I spent a week at the U.S. Junior that was held at CCNC, Country Club of North Carolina. Then it was off to Golf, Illinois. Yes, of course, Golf, Illinois for the Western Amateur at the Glenview Club. After a week there, it was off to New York to Westchester Country Club for the U.S. Women's Amateur. And if that wasn't enough, the final leg, yes, I was at Oakmont for the entire week for the U.S. Amateur. There's so many people to thank. I won't go through them all here, but everyone at the Country Club of North Carolina, the Western Golf Association, Glenview Club, the incredible family at Westchester Country Club, and of course everyone at Oakmont and especially the USGA. You made this trip so enjoyable and comfortable. The players and their families were amazing. The outpouring of support from fans and listeners at the back of the range at all of these championships. Every time someone asks, hey, are you the back of the range guy? Well, it's greatly appreciated, it's humbling, and it makes it that much more exciting for me to move forward with more episodes and more trips to go cover championships all over the country. In these 4 weeks on the road, I met some incredible players and personalities that will be future guests on the back of the range. Nick Dunlap, the U.S. Junior Amateur Champion, he'll be stopping by. Thorbjornsen's been on the podcast before, but he obviously has some things to discuss after that dominant victory at the Western Amateur. So yes, Michael Thorbjornsen will return to the back of the range. Jensen Castle, the new U.S. Women's Amateur Champ, that episode's already recorded. It will be posted soon. And of course, I need to catch up with those two finalists at Oakmont, James Pyatt, the U.S. Amateur Champion, and Austin Greaser, the runner-up. They, along with many, many others, will be stopping by the back of the range very soon. So stay tuned. More episodes will be posted shortly. Before those guests show up at the back of the range, I wanted to bring you a unique episode, very special one with someone that, like myself, helps chronicle the play of some of the best amateurs in the world. My guest on this episode is Darren Carroll. Darren is an award-winning golf photographer, and if you have perused a Golf Digest or a Sports Illustrated, Golf World, if you've taken a look at any of those magazines in your day, you have undoubtedly seen his work. He is also a staff photographer for the USGA, and our paths crossed for the first time at the U.S. Women's 4-Ball at Maridoe in April. We walked those fairways in Texas together, capturing images, and, those fairways actually took the shape of more of a classroom for me because I got to watch Darren work, I got to pick up some tips and tricks, and annoyed him with random questions about aperture, shutter speed, and which lens produced the best depth of field. Now, don't worry. Darren and I actually talked about it before we recorded this episode. We promised each other we can't let this episode dissolve into like a deep dive into camera technology. We didn't do that. You do not need to be a photographer to enjoy this episode. Darren shared stories about how he got into the game of golf, how he got into photography, and what excites him about both. Also in this episode, he shared stories about a handful of specific photos that are near and dear to him. You've seen these photos online before, so wouldn't you like to know what happened right before Darren clicked the shutter button? Well, in this episode, you will. In the show notes of this episode, you'll see a link called Darren Carroll Photo Review, Minute 41. So you'll click on that link and you can look at the photos as Darren and I talk about them. I highly recommend doing this. The photos will also be on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. So make sure you take a moment to find the show notes of this episode. It will definitely enhance the enjoyment of this conversation towards the tail end of the episode. As always, make sure you are following along on Facebook, Twitter, and especially Instagram. The merch store still has hats, towels, face masks. Send me an email. If you're a new follower to the back of the range, you have some questions, or you have an idea for a future guest, send me an email, ben@thebackoftherange.com. As always, rating and review this podcast in Apple Podcasts is greatly appreciated. And seriously, above all, thank you to all of the fans of the Back of the Range. If you're new, welcome to the party. If you've been here since day one, I greatly appreciate your unwavering support. But for now, let's get this episode underway. Darren, you're at the Back of the Range. How are you?
Well, thank you, Ben.
This is a treat. I've been wanting to do this for quite some time, and I can honestly say that you and I we're now colleagues. And when I say colleagues, that means that we both walk into a media center carrying cameras.
Yes.
And that's basically where it all stops. But we're here at the U.S. Women's Amateur at Westchester Country Club. Thrilled we're able to do this in person as opposed to typically over the phone where most of the interviews happen. But we're here covering this great tournament at this great facility. I know what my week's been like so far. How's your week been at Westchester?
Long. Yeah.
Oh,
okay.
it's
a long day.
Okay.
Every day's been a long day. I'm looking forward to today. The day that we're doing this is the quarterfinals today.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which means we only have matches in the afternoon, which is a blessing.
Blessing. Yes, it is.
Match play when you do 2 18-hole rounds a day can just be crazy.
It's a lot.
And I mean, you and I both know we've been going yesterday 7 o'clock in the morning till 6 at night. Then we had 2 stroke play days. And then we had the 32 match day, which was pretty much the same thing. And this is coming on the heels of a week at the U.S. Senior Women's Open last week. So I've been going nonstop for the past 2 weeks, pretty much.
So you've been shooting golf for about 25 years? Is that
Something
about right?
like that.
Something like that?
Yeah, I think this will be officially my 25th year.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. And you've obviously, awards upon awards. You've been in Sports Illustrated. Your work's been there. You've been Golf Digest and just all sorts of publications. And it's not just golf you shoot. You shoot.
I do all sorts of other sports. I do tennis for the U.S. Open. I do portraits, documentary work, all sorts of stuff.
You're all over the place. So it's kind of a rite of passage here at the Back of the Range. You can't get too far into the episode without sharing a little bit of the start in the game. Now, you have a start in golf, and then you also have a start in photography. Let's start with golf. How did you get into playing the game of golf?
My dad got me into it when I was really young, and I grew up on Long Island, a town called Garden City, and he's a member at a club called Garden City Golf Club.
Sure.
And from when I was about 7 or 8 years old, he would take me out there, and we'd tee it up. He'd tee it up, and then he'd take me out to the middle of the fairway, and then he'd put a tee in the ground, and he'd say, "You hit from here." And it was a lot of fun. It's got some really, really good memories of that place. And man, it spoiled me for golf for a long time.
Sure.
Because when you grow up playing at a place like that, you think every golf course looks like that, which it doesn't.
It doesn't.
You don't know what a tee time is. What do you mean? I can't just walk up with my dad and they say, "Yeah, go ahead." There's nobody here. Go ahead. I mean that. So it took me a while to learn that and get used to it. But one of the things that it really did was a place like that taught me about the game and respect for the game.
Sure.
And rules and etiquette and everything that makes this game special.
Yeah.
It was a really special place. You walk in there, you see all these old pictures and golf clubs on the wall, and there's a room just full of nothing but Walter Travis photos. And here we are, Westchester, another Walter Travis course. So to be able to, not even so much playing golf, but the memories of being with my dad and my brother out there, and the memories of just walking through that place and soaking all that history in. It was just a really special way to learn about the game.
Yeah.
So,
no, that's awesome. And then, photography, we'll get into how you got started with that because, it's so funny here at the Back of the Range. I hear all these, like when I talk to amateur golfers that are, maybe they live in Idaho and they end up like Grayson Huff, grows up in Eagle, Idaho, and then goes and plays at Auburn, or players that are international that end up going to Texas Tech. How do these things happen? And with a little digging that did not take very much, but you have a bachelor's degree in government
Yes.
from Georgetown.
Yes.
And now you're an award-winning photographer, last 25 years, you've traveled all over the world, all over the country, shooting some of the biggest events, tournaments, championships, and you have a degree in government.
Yes.
Okay, so can you maybe connect the dots from the judicial system and learning about that and government to having, toting a camera around fairways?
Yeah, I was supposed to be a lawyer. Like I was supposed to be the lawyer in the family, taking after my father and, sort of continuing the tradition. And I picked up a camera in high school. That's another story entirely. But
we tell stories here.
Oh, we do?
We do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you about that one next. But I picked up a camera in high school and really liked it. When I got to college at Georgetown, I decided, well, maybe I'll try this newspaper thing. I've got my camera with me, and maybe it'll be, fun to maybe work on the newspaper. Let's see where this leads us. Well, where it led me to was sleeping through my 10:30 classes by about the fourth week of my freshman year, because I was spending all night in the darkroom developing pictures and making prints and just getting addicted to that process.
Sure.
And my parents made the mistake of letting me bring my car down the middle of my freshman year. And so I became the only photographer on the staff that had a car. Uh-huh. And I don't know what you know about Georgetown or Washington, D.C. geography, but the basketball team used to play at a place called the Capitol Center in Landover, Maryland, which on a good day was a 45-minute drive from campus. And so guess who got to shoot all the Georgetown basketball games? Mm-hmm. And guess who got to meet all of the Washington, D.C. sports photographers and start learning from them and assisting for them. And the sort of network grew from there. And
so most college students that have a car are real popular because they can go get beer or they can go, go to the parties.
Yeah.
You actually probably got to do that too, but you actually use that to network and further your career. So without that car, without wheels, maybe
I probably wouldn't have shot as much Georgetown basketball. I wouldn't have met the guy who was the arena photographer for the Capitol Center, who then would have introduced me to a couple of Sports Illustrated photographers, and that got me assisting for Sports Illustrated when I moved to Austin, and there we go. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Obviously, Georgetown with such a powerhouse basketball team, so this is not just some...
No, this was Alonzo Mourning and Dikembe Mutombo, and then right before Allen Iverson showed up, John Thompson, Big John was still the coach. I mean, it was... So...
That's incredible. So you're really talking about being at the right place at the right time. Mm-hmm. Okay, so we're talking about, that's how you got into the game. That's kind of how the photography piece started in your life.
Right.
Let's talk about how did golf photography become maybe a thing, because I don't know how easily that is to jump into.
So I moved down to Austin to get a graduate degree at University of Texas.
Sure.
And like I said, I had made these inroads with Sports Illustrated, and they started hiring me to hang strobes in the catwalks at their basketball arenas in San Antonio, Dallas, Houston. So I started working for them.
Sure.
My parents still lived on Long Island, so I would go to visit them every now and then. And one day when I went up to see them, I decided I would go into the Sports Illustrated office and let them put a name to the face that they've been calling to give all these assisting assignments to. And I met a guy named Ward Haynes, who was the golf picture editor. Every sport at Sports Illustrated back then had its own editor for pictures. And Ward was the golf photo editor at the time. And I sort of walked down the hallway and introduced myself to anyone and everybody. And we started talking about golf. And he said, listen, if you ever want to shoot a golf tournament, nobody wants to shoot golf around here. And I can't understand why. You only walk 10 miles a day with 100 pounds of equipment and sweltering heat and everything. So, what's not to love?
Of course.
He said, no, but seriously, just if something comes up and you want to go shoot a golf tournament or something, if something's near you, give me a call. Let me know. And about August, early September of 1996, I called Ward because I had heard on the radio. I said, Ward, I don't know if you know this, but there's this Texas Open down in San Antonio in a couple of weeks, and this Tiger Woods guy just committed to go play in it.
Yes, and this is like right after he turns pro. He wins the USM at Pumpkin Ridge in '96, so he's off to the races. Hello world.
Hello world. Well, so Ward then, small world, says to me, well, I just handed over the golf photo editing duties to a new guy. His name is Matt Janella. And so talked to him.
Okay.
And so that was the first time that Matt and I ever talked. And he said, oh, absolutely. Here's the deal. We'll get you your credentials. We'll give you an assignment and the whole thing. And so not only was that my first Sports Illustrated assignment, it was the first golf tournament I'd ever shot.
First golf tournament you ever
no
shot?
Clue.
Tiger Woods.
First tournament I ever shot, Tiger Woods.
PGA Tour. Yeah.
Texas Open.
So you don't really understand exactly how to navigate around a golf course yet. You don't really understand maybe, because it's still taking me time to figure out, okay, how do you navigate it? What's the do's and don'ts?
Yeah.
So even though you've played the game, obviously
it was a good thing that I had played the game because I had an idea of
Yeah.
what to do and what not to do. And, obviously I read up on things, and you can't fire on the backswing and you can't do all of this stuff. And this is back in the day of film cameras and motor drives that sounded like shotguns going off.
Okay.
And, so you really had to be careful. And it's all roped off. And so it's not that hard to figure out, but still, I was nervous as hell. I'd never done this before. And here I am, Sports Illustrated's paying me to shoot pictures at a golf tournament. What? Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
let's do it. So this is a pretty impressive first start.
And it went really well. And I'm driving down in my car on Sunday morning. Tiger is somewhere in the hunt, and my phone rings, and it's Matt. And he says, listen, I don't want to make you nervous or anything, but do me a favor, and when you see Tiger, shoot lots of verticals. Okay, he goes, because if he wins, this is going to be the cover. Yeah, don't be nervous, right? Yeah, no problem. First golf tournament, first Sports Illustrated assignment, driving down in the car, 3 hours before Tiger tees off, shoot lots of verticals. He's going to be the cover if he wins. And
so David Ogren is the reason that you basically did not get a SI cover on your first golf shoot.
Well, assuming I had a picture that was in focus and well exposed that would have worked, but yes. Yeah.
Right. Wow.
Which back then is not a given. Today it's not a given, but back then it certainly wasn't a given. So,
have you ever shot David Ogren at a golf tournament after that? Have you ever met him?
I never met him.
Okay, I'm just curious.
And
well, guess who's here outside? Guess who's waiting to come in? David, come on in. No, that's not happening. So obviously, a lot has changed in the technological aspect of photography. We'll get into that a little bit later. I promise to people listening right now, this is not going to turn into a camera, podcast, because we typically talk about this a lot. We won't do that here. But as you said, you've shot a lot of other sports, football, baseball, basketball, swimming, rodeo.
Yeah.
What are maybe some of the most challenging sports to shoot for you that maybe when just someone leafing through a Sports Illustrated or looking at a magazine or on a website and they see these great photos. Yeah. Oh, nice photo. But they don't understand maybe what goes on behind it.
There are a lot that are hard to do. I think the hardest sports to shoot from a technical standpoint are the sports where, and this may be getting too into the weeds, but that are strobed.
Okay.
In other words, indoor sports in arenas that are really dark, like basketball, hockey, rodeo, where what we do is we hang flashes up in the rafters to provide extra light when we shoot. And this is not just me. This is all the Sports Illustrated guys. This is the way things were done for years and years and years.
Right.
And the problem with that is you only get one picture, single frame, and you have to allow 3 seconds for those strobes to recycle before you can fire again. So all of these famous, and I'm not talking about my pictures necessarily, I'm talking about all of these famous pictures that people who study sports photography, basketball, hockey, even some boxing and some rodeo pictures from the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s. If you don't know how it was done, you can't appreciate that photographer was pushing the button once and not using the motor drive and taking one frame. And so from a technical standpoint, I would say those kind of sports, those indoor sports where we use strobes, are the hardest things to shoot. A single sport that is the absolute hardest is hockey.
Okay, why
it moves so fast.
Okay.
You're shooting on strobes. Well, for Sports Illustrated, you were shooting on strobes. And you're half the time you're shooting through a quarter-inch thick, half-inch thick pane of plexiglass that is not exactly optically sound.
Of course.
So to be able to get peak action, timed right, in focus, I mean, it's just...
There's just a lot going on.
Yeah. I mean, so, that's hard. That's really hard. Yeah.
I know what challenges you face out here on the golf course. You're every time I see you walking in and out, you're basically carrying, I think, at least 3 lenses, 2 bodies. You have a belt, utility belt, basically with all other equipment. People can go on at several USGA championships throughout the year. People can go on the USGA website. A lot of the pictures that they see are along with Chris Keene and with Stephen Gibbons, but a lot of the stuff they see is yours. For people that see the end result but don't see everything else that goes into it, what is basically a typical day look like? Let's just call it a stroke play event, or a stroke play session. So here at the Women's AM, you have 156 players. They're all going to play one golf course. So I'm making this really simple.
Right.
Not 2 golf courses.
Yeah, we're not going back and forth with the 200 and some player field.
We're just going to call one day stroke play 156. What does a typical day from start to finish look like for you?
It's a really early wake-up call
Okay.
Because, your first tee time will probably be 7 o'clock. Okay. And if it's the first day when we're working a USGA event, you have to have the first ball.
Okay.
Absolutely positive. There are 3 pictures that you need to have at a USGA event. And not talking the US Open or anything, but a US Amateur, a Mid-Am. You have to have the winner with the trophy. Okay. At the end of the day on Sunday or the last day, you have to have the medalist in stroke play, and you have to have the first ball. If you don't bring home all 3 of those, it's probably the last USGA championship you'll ever shoot. So you absolutely cannot, under any circumstances, miss the first ball. So if it's a 7 o'clock tee time, I want to be here latest 6 a.m., if not earlier. Not only to make sure that I don't miss that first ball, but there's stuff going on early. The sun's coming up. You have really nice light. They want a photo gallery to start as early as possible. So if I can give them a couple of pictures of players warming up on the driving range, volunteers helping out on the driving range.
Flag sticks going in.
Yeah, maintenance crew
Sure.
taking care of the green with a nice sunrise or something like that. Those are all pictures to be made. So it's usually, depending on the drive from the hotel to the golf course, a 4:30 wake-up call, something like that. Get out here. I usually go straight to the range with like one camera from the parking lot and just walk up and down, and if there's a nice picture or two, do that. Then I come back into the media center and I start putting all of my gear together. And this is, mind you, making sure the night before all your batteries are charged.
Sure.
All your peripherals are taken care of. That's all done the night before. And then I'm out, 15 minutes before first ball at the first tee to see what it looks like and where I'm going to shoot this from. Doing something for the USGA, for example, I consider them not so much an editorial client as a commercial client. So you're looking for branding. You're looking for, how do I work a tee marker or the podium into this sort of unobtrusively without it being messy, and making a nice image for the USGA website, things like that. So it's sort of impromptu, but I like to get out there. I don't want to wander out there as soon as they're announcing the competitors. And then you just have the whole day in front of you. We have to, you have your list that you'll get from the folks in the media center. Maybe there are special requests from corporate partners, things like that you have to look out for. And if it's a golf course that I've never been to before, that first day is also a scouting trip as well. I need to make sure that I get the leaders at the end of every day, but I also need to just kind of keep my head on a swivel and turn around and say, okay, this is the second tee in the morning. Well, in the afternoon, this is going to look really nice. If I get to a spot on the course in the morning that is just not doing it for me, I still have to think to myself, what's this going to look like at 3 o'clock in the afternoon? Because we still have a whole second afternoon wave to play.
Sure, and like if you see like the 6th tee box is up against the end of the property, and there's like a chain link fence behind it, or there's like a slide from someone's pool,
Right.
and how you realize I never need to go back
That's right.
there.
Yep.
I'm not going there anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
So,
And then,
yeah.
okay,
there are
this-
certain holes that I will only see on the last day of match play because I'm walking with. There's only one group to walk with,
Right.
and I have no choice but to be there.
Right.
But that first day is kind of figuring that out as
Sure.
well.
So you get done with your shoot. I know you're in and out maybe a couple times a day.
Yeah, I'll come in for a bite to eat,
Sure.
lunch or something, or a cup of coffee or something like that. But then I come in and
Then the real work starts.
then I have to ingest all of my pictures. We are transmitting from the field. When we're out there, my cameras have FTP transmitters on them. I have a MiFi hotspot with me. And so I am just sort of editing through on the back of my camera as I go and sending 1 or 2 pictures of each sequence that I'm shooting all throughout the course of the day. And that gives them the ability to update the website and to update the photo galleries and things like that. But when I come back in, all of my cards have to be dumped into my laptop. And then all of those images, which are raw images, we only send the JPEGs back to the
Right.
during the day, have to get uploaded to the USGA's archive so that they get everything.
Sure.
So, and then I like to go through everything because I want to see what I'm shooting. I want to make sure my equipment is working. I want to say, you know what, maybe if I were 5 feet further to the left or the right, this background might be a little bit better.
Sure.
Or maybe I could get a little lower here. Or, maybe there are some very specific lenses that I could use in certain situations that I only see when I look at it on my laptop screen and go, oh, wait, you know what would work really well there? Okay, tomorrow we're going to try that. And make little mental notes to myself about things like that. And then there's dinner in there somewhere too. And I'm probably not done, till 10 o'clock, 10:30, and then up the next morning and do it all
12,
again.
15-hour days.
Yeah.
And how much do you love it?
I love it. It's,
Yeah.
I love it some days more than others, but
Of course.
it beats working for a living.
I was just going to say it's and
I'm on a golf course every day.
that's your office.
Yeah. And 99% of the time I'm working with great people,
This is the one.
meaning the athletes, the golfers.
Exactly.
Yeah. So it's,
Can you think back to a time where you were in panic mode and almost didn't make that first tee?
yes.
Would you like to share that story?
I'm not sure I should fess up to it, but let's just say it involves shooting the first tee out my car window, driving up to the clubhouse.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. Uh-huh.
So-
I was a little late getting out of bed,
Okay.
and I was in a panic, and I actually got to the course in plenty of time, but I had to pick up my credentials from the clubhouse,
Right.
and I was detained for 15 minutes by the security guard at the front gate who would not let me in. And as I watched the clock tick
You're just like,
and tick and tick, I finally said to him, "You're going to have to chase after me." And I drove through.
oh my gosh.
Had never been to this golf course before. And I'm just thinking, I've got to get to the clubhouse. I've got to get to the clubhouse. I've got to get to the clubhouse. And as I'm driving to the clubhouse, on my left-hand side is the first tee and the first fairway. And I just stopped my car and rolled down the window. And yes.
That's incredible.
Yes. So, yeah.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That's so cool.
I mean, yeah, not every golf course is like that.
No.
This might be the only golf course I've ever seen that had a road running right behind the first tee that would, yeah. But
that is okay.
Yeah.
That's a great story.
it also involved barbecue, but that's
I know how much of a big barbecue guy you are. If we go that direction, I mean, oh my gosh. Now, a lot of the focus on this podcast, one of the things I really enjoy about doing the podcast and obviously getting into photography is the relationships that I build with the players.
Yeah.
And they at least on the amateur side, you spent a lot of time on the pro side as well, but the amateurs love seeing a photographer.
Yes.
I mean, they're just they love seeing them show up. They love seeing their pictures later. And obviously with technology now, there's a quick turnaround.
Sure.
We're not going into dark rooms.
Right.
A lot of times we can Wi-Fi it from our camera to our
Right.
phone to text and boom, in like 2 minutes it's there. How much Give me an example of some of the relationships you've built with some golfers over the years that are seeing you more than once at several times a year or several times over the years.
Right.
How much fun is it just to kind of reconnect some of these players?
I just enjoy watching. I hate to make it sound condescending or whatever, but I enjoy watching them grow up.
Yeah.
We're speaking amateur golf right now, obviously, but when I first started, it was, I get to go shoot the Masters, and I get to go shoot the U.S. Open, and I get to shoot all these pro events, and there's Tiger Woods, and I don't know Tiger, but there's Phil Mickelson or whatever. And when you're young and you're starting out in the business, and that's sort of your attitude, and I'm out here for Sports Illustrated, and this is great. That's one thing, but like the more I've done this and the older I get and the more experienced I get, the more I realize that like the amateur game is really where it's at. Like, this is where you forge relationships with people. There are some PGA Tour golfers like David Thompson. I used to joke that I was his personal photographer for years because I shot a couple of covers of Golf Digest with him. And like every time I showed up, he would seem to win the PGA Tour event that we were at, so
kind of like the Darren Carroll mojo, similar to the back of the range.
Yeah,
I mean, if you're shooting it, of course.
So it's nice when we would go and the USGA has the Champions Dinner and he would be there and we'd be able to catch up and things like that. That's great, but like to watch somebody like Cole Hammer that I've been shooting for years now, and then to see him play that practice round with Jordan Spieth and Cody Gribble at Chambers Bay when he was, I think, 14 or something like that. Yeah. And then to, watch him go off to college and all that. And I think I was chatting with some friends of mine about future Ryder Cup venues, for example, and we're kind of like ticking off like, who do we think is going to be the captain? Who do we think is going to be the captain? And like we got out to like 2050 or something, and I'm like, well, geez, like Cole Hammer is going to be the captain at that point,
Right, sure.
And but being able to just sort of see that progression of these young golfers, I don't mean to single Cole out. I mean, he's a great guy, from everybody else, but people recognize you. They see that they've seen you out here and they appreciate your being out here. You get to know the parents, you get to know the families. It's just a really great way of getting to know people and form relationships. And that's what this is all about now, is watching these golfers progress through their careers. Like I remember you when, back when. Yeah.
Now, when you're out there, this is something that I guess you see real raw emotional moments, especially in match play.
Yes.
Where there's the immediate joy, elation, relief, and also the immediate heartbreak and tears and stuff like that. How do you want to capture the moment, but also there's times where maybe internally you're like, gosh, this poor girl or this poor guy is just laid wide open emotionally, and I have a huge camera lens that is going to capture it so closely. Is there that internal struggle when you're doing that?
Yes and no. I mean, I am a human being, so I have empathy, and I certainly do not want to interject myself into that situation. However, I am also here to document the event, and this is an athletic contest, and there are, what is that old Jim McKay saying from ABC World of Sports? The thrill of victory and the agony of defeat. It goes both ways, and part of me has to have some trust in the athlete that they recognize that as well. Now, does that mean if you are crying because you just lost your match on the 17th green that you relish the idea of me taking your picture? No, and I don't expect you to. But I would hope that you could appreciate that someday you're going to be the person jumping up and down on the other side of the green, and you're going to want me to capture that just as much as it's my job to do that. Now, I will not get up in your face with a 24 millimeter lens and do it. I will keep that long lens, and I will shoot, as a friend of mine likes to call it, the 400 millimeter wide angle.
Mm-hmm.
But
Right.
and that's part of the reason why I do carry all of that stuff, so that I can maintain a respectful distance.
Right.
And do that. But I do need to be out there for the high points and the low points. Yeah. So
I want to talk to you a little bit about getting these shots.
Yeah.
It is not just you walk out there and stand and make sure no one's in your way and make sure, and then, I mean, there's a lot of thought that goes in to getting these shots. And I think it's interesting, especially in golf, if you have a player that's standing over a 5-foot putt and doesn't stay in the present and focus on the process, they'll miss that shot. They'll miss that putt.
Yes.
If they think too much about the end result, this is a birdie putt or this is to win. If they think too much about the end, they're going to miss the details of the middle. Can you maybe walk through, I'm sure you have tons of examples, but a shot, what goes into getting that shot before you actually hit the shutter button?
Yeah. I always tell people that golf is the easiest sport to shoot.
Okay.
Because players aren't going anywhere.
Right.
You know where they're going to wind up ahead of time.
Right.
You know where you need to be because you can see where their ball is.
Right.
And they do the same thing over and over and over again. I mean, on a rare occasion, somebody will have a crazy lie in a bunker and they'll have to stand a certain way or, fall over on their backswing or take their shoes off to get into a water hazard or something like that. But 99% of the time, it's the same repetitive motion over and over and over again. And it's not hard to shoot.
Right.
But it's the hardest sport to shoot well, because what do you do differently from the two people that are walking down that fairway with you to get something that's not the same? Right. So I look at where the light's coming from. I usually like to try to keep the sun behind the players because it eliminates the shadow from their hat over their face. Mm-hmm. The later on in the day it gives you a nice little rim light around them too. Part and parcel with that is the background. I like to try to find something clean, hopefully trees. I can shoot them against a white sky too, but or a blue sky or something like that. But something that doesn't have a whole lot of ropes or
signs,
some random person
posts or trash can.
Right. Yeah. Unless the sign sort of adds to the context of the picture, a whole sign with, again, we get back to that branding thing for PGA of America events or USGA events or whatever it is. So I like to look at it that way. And then I've been doing it long enough that one of the things that I will observe the first time I see a player is how they swing.
Okay.
Where do they finish? Do they have a high finish with their club?
Yeah.
Do they have a flat swing when they take the club back? Is it going to be basically on a plane with their shoulders? Are they going to go up over their head with it? So all of these things sort of factor into how am I going to frame it up as well.
And then also with putting,
yeah,
how do they celebrate a putt?
Right. Yes.
I'm sure you can give an example of a shot that you're able to capture perfectly that was due to not just you standing in the right place, but knowing how that player is going to react as opposed to, so do you have a...
I do, and they both involve Tiger.
Okay.
Yeah. One was at a particular U.S. Open, and I know that Tiger usually, when he makes a big putt, he will do the fist pump and spin.
Right.
Right? So I can't remember where we were, but I was sitting right next to one of the communications folks from the USGA, and it was just him and me, and Tiger was putting, and he was facing away from us.
Okay.
And he leaned over, the USGA guy leaned over to me, he goes, "I know why you're here." He goes, "Those other guys over there don't know what you know." And I said, "Probably." And he makes the putt, and he spins, and he
right in your
of course,
face.
turns right back at me, right? So I felt pretty good about that. That was great. Now, let's fast forward to 2008, Tiger at Torrey Pines. I was shooting for Golf World, and I was the freelancer. We had 3 staff photographers, Steve Zerle, Dom Ferror, J.D. Cuban, and then I was the freelancer. So I got what was the fourth position on the green, because on 18 we figure out where we all want to, where everybody should be, and we make sure that we're all, and it's perfectly understandable. I mean, I get at Augusta, it was the same thing. I was the guy on golfer's right going up the 18th fairway all the time, and that's another Tiger picture where he turned around and spun right at me and did it.
Right.
It was 2005, I think, when he won the 2005 Masters, and it was on the cover of Golf World because he did the same thing. He spun around. So I am in the fourth position, back of the green at Torrey, looking back down the fairway. And we all know where Tiger's putt on Sunday was.
Sure.
And he was facing right at me. And I just remember thinking to myself, I am so, can I say the F word on this podcast?
You can say effed.
I am so effed
Okay.
because I know exactly what's going to happen here.
Make it. He's going to spin.
And I had him dead to rights, makes the putt, and I have the sharpest picture of Tiger's ass doing a fist pump that you will ever see. So it works both ways.
Sure.
But, knowing that.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I love these stories. They're so great. Well, you've already told the story about being late, almost being late to the first tee and getting chased by security, which is, that's the coolest thing. Have you, now I think a lot of people know that, you're talking about Tiger, Stevie Williams was on his back for many years.
Yeah.
And there's that famous story or famous incident where he basically takes a camera from a photographer.
Yeah.
Have you ever had any, maybe not those kind of violent moments, but maybe moments on there where, you have a player or an official or maybe someone in the gallery that is, how do you kind of maintain and do your job in scenarios where there's people that, truly don't have issues with photographers?
You have to be really careful. And a lot of it, there are times when I'll see certain photographers, and I'm not going to name them, but,
sure.
Out there, and I will stay away from them because I don't want to be anywhere near them because I know that they don't know what they're doing, or I know that they will fire on somebody's back, or there's a pretty good chance that they will.
Right.
There aren't as many of us out there now, but there used to be sort of really regular core of people from SI and Golf Digest and Golf World and the wires that would go out and cover everything, and we got to know each other. And you kind of stuck together, and if there was somebody new, you kind of had to, does this person know what they're doing? Are they safe to be around? And occasionally we'll nudge people too. If somebody fires on a person's practice swing, you kind of say to them, hey, listen, you shouldn't do that because it's not good for any of us.
No. You'll be guilty by association.
I'm not trying to be a dick. I'm just trying to let you know that, if you do it, they're going to turn around and look at all 10 of us back here.
Well, I think you told me a story at Merido at the U.S. Amateur 4-Ball, something similar like that, where if one photographer does something wrong, it could literally lose all of the privileges of the photographer.
Yeah. That's, I look at what happened at Augusta years ago with Phil. There was a tower behind 18T. And, the savvier golf fans among us will remember Fred Vujich's Sports Illustrated masterpiece cover taken from an elevated spot, Tiger on the backswing in the red on 18, looking right through those trees.
Yeah.
It's probably the greatest golf picture ever taken, and certainly one of the most amazing Sports Illustrated covers ever taken. But Fred took it with a rangefinder camera, a Mamiya 7, I think it was, which makes a very tiny click, but because there's no mirror in it, unless you're 2 feet away from it, you could never hear it.
Right.
And so he took that picture knowing he was using that equipment, knowing that it was safe, whatever. Fast forward a couple of years and Phil's on 18 and somebody just lets loose in that tower. That tower has not gone up since.
Wow.
Gone. And you can't blame Augusta for it.
Of course not.
You can't do it anymore. That person cost everybody that position. So that's why you have to look out for everybody.
Well, and the other thing too that I know, and I guess I'm not sure what your thoughts on this are. Obviously, with technology, most people have an iPhone in their pocket. Mm-hmm. iPhones have the cameras, and we all see on TV. we see it all the time. People just holding their cameras up, iPads up. And I guess that's good because that means everyone wants photos and they want to document history. But you're trying to do it professionally in a sea of iPhones and iPads all over the place. Maybe what's a word of advice you can give to people that are attending golf tournaments? I mean, obviously, like, I guess put their phones away or like, I mean.
Well, if you're not going to put your phone away, turn the sound off.
Right.
Please turn the sound off. I mean, you don't need your phone to make a camera click noise to know that you've taken a picture. But my God, I don't know how these people are enjoying the golf tournament. I see more people trying to watch the video that they're recording of somebody trying to tee off when you could put the phone down. Like, are you really going to watch that video ever again in your life? I mean, what do you need that for? I don't get it. I really don't get it. Just take it in. Like, enjoy the atmosphere. Don't, listen to the sound. That's the sound that a professional golfer's club head makes at impact with a golf ball is a thing of beauty. Like, put the damn phone down. Close your eyes. Go to the driving range and just close your eyes and listen to somebody hit irons for 20 minutes. Yeah. It astounds me that that people get so lost in their phones and wanting to take a video to show their friends or whatever that you're losing an appreciation for what you're witnessing, I think.
Without mentioning Tiger,
yes,
who is probably the most impressive golfer you've seen in person?
Phil.
Okay.
Yeah. Just, I mean, he gets himself into and out of situations that, no mortal can. And for that reason, he's just so much fun to shoot.
Okay.
I mean, you never know what's going to happen. And I say this in the most complimentary way possible.
Right.
I mean, it's, whole "What Will Phil Do Next" campaign from 20 years ago that Ford did or whatever it was, it still rings true today. Like,
18 shots of Phil in a fairway. Who needs that?
Right. No, nobody needs 18 shots of any golfer. Give me Phil getting out of the rough, getting out of a bunker, hitting a flop shot any day.
So we're going to try something a little bit different here. This is obviously an audio medium.
Okay.
But, we've been talking about your photographs.
Yeah.
And I want listeners to be able to take a look at some of these photographs while we're discussing them.
Oh, okay.
So you shared with me 5 photos. Yeah. And I'm going to put a link to the website. I'm going to put a link to either my website or your site. We're going to have a link in the show notes of this episode.
Okay.
There's also going to be an Instagram post showing all 5 of these pictures. Okay. So people listening right now can pull out their phone or go to their computer and actually look at the photos as we're talking about them. These are your shots you've taken. So we just got done talking about Phil.
Yeah.
So historic win at Kiowa where he just won the PGA championship. Yeah. And one of the most shared photos from that championship is Phil standing in the rough, a bunch of people in the background, and he's got his hands on his hips, and he kind of looks like he's Batman or Superman and just has that pose. And you took that photo. Yeah. And so this is the first photo we're going to talk about. So people are looking on Instagram, looking on the website. That's the Phil shot we're talking about. And you took that shot. Yeah. Can you tell me the story behind that shot?
I just, it was one of those Phil moments. Like, he teed off on 16, and you knew the ball was going right the whole time.
Okay.
And it's just like, holy shit, where is this thing going to wind up?
Right.
And there's a cart path that runs up the right side of 16. And so I just hightailed it up the road, and I saw the ball there, and I figured I know where he's going to go, and it's not going to be pitching back out on the fairway because it's Phil. So I'm going to park myself right here. And if he moves me, he moves me. But if not, I'll stay. And a bunch of other photographers got down right next to me. I make it a habit, especially with somebody like Phil, because he's very talkative. He and Tim talk about the shots all the time. They can get expressive when they're discussing what they're going to do, that I keep the camera up to my eye the whole time.
Okay.
I mean, I never take it down. Once I've committed to what lens I'm going to use and how I'm going to frame it, I don't turn around and talk to the person next to me. I don't pick my head up with somebody like that in a situation like that. And he just did that. I mean, he walked up and he just kind of, it was like sort of a sigh, like, what the hell am I going to do now? And he put his hands on his hips, and it was probably a second, if that. And I remember I have one frame of it. I just went, did he just do that? Like, and it was gone. It was just one frame and it was gone. That was it. And that was it.
Okay,
Yeah.
so I guess one thing I have to ask as a follow-up to that, when you get that and you look in your camera, I'm assuming you look right in your camera after you take it. You're not waiting till later on.
There are times when I will look, but I might be walking down after the shot. Like, I didn't go through right then and there because, again, like, I don't want to distract myself about what. Yeah.
But when you see that, you got it.
Yeah.
What was your reaction when you looked down and saw that? I mean,
I was kind of like, holy, did he just do that?
Well,
like,
not just did he just do that, but you got it.
Yeah. I was like, yeah, I got it. Okay, good. But then I also knew that there were a bunch of other people right next to me. So what I didn't know at the time, and I mean, if somebody else has it, I haven't seen it.
Okay.
It's very possible that it is, somewhere else.
Right.
But I haven't seen it anywhere else. And I was thinking to myself, wow, that was pretty cool. But I also figured that there were a bunch of people around me, and that was I thought that was like the picture that summed up Phil's round that day.
Of course.
But I also thought you would see it on a whole bunch of different places too. So
sure.
I didn't think like, oh my God, what is this?
But you still have that sense of joy.
But
when
that's cool.
Yeah, I'm just talking about you
that's
getting
a cool picture.
I'm just talking about you, like, not just with Phil, but just in general. When you get it, you're not looking at like, well, it's my job to do this.
Right.
This is what I'm paid.
No, there's a little bit more of a spring in your step walking down the fairway when you get a frame that you're really happy with, or that you either suspect or know that other people don't have.
Right.
So
because I mean, even though you're a little competitive with yourself,
of course,
right? That's, all right, picture number 2, Rory McIlroy, 2014 Open Championship.
Yeah.
Holding the trophy, a little bit of a fist pump.
Yep.
Talk to me about that picture.
That is the last cover of the print version of Golf World.
Wow.
Yeah. We were at Hoylake, 2014. They'd done the prize ceremony, as they call it, and crowned Rory the champion golfer of the year. And I was still on the side of the green, and Rory's parents were out at the little tunnel where you walk off the green. And I had seen them over there, and so I knew he was going to be walking that way at some point. And so I just kept the lens on Rory as he kind of walked off. And, I do remember a bunch of photographers sort of filing past me as I'm still down on one knee kind of following Rory, and he just looked back over at his parents and he gave him that little look and the fist bump. And I remember there was one photographer that tapped me on the shoulder as he walked by and he goes, "You son of a bitch." That's awesome. But I put that in there. It's one of my favorite pictures because Golf World, I mean, if it weren't for Golf World, I wouldn't be here. Right. I mean, that was 10 12 years, Matt Janella was director of photography at Golf Digest for a long time, and Golf Digest owned Golf World. So I did my first Masters for them, my first U.S. Open for them. I mean, it was instrumental in the rest of my photo career. So
and then it's
that
nice
picture, like, it brings tears to my eyes. But it really, because we were at breakfast the next morning at the hotel, getting ready to go fly home, and our editor-in-chief walked down and said, "That's it, guys. We're shutting it down." Yeah. So that's the last cover of Golf World. Yeah.
Wow. Well, it's a nice bookend to You have a great photo here of Tiger. That's incredibly unique. I mean, we've all seen. I mean, everyone has seen the pictures of Tiger from Torrey and then winning the previous Masters. They're really the hero shots, I guess you'd call them. This is one of Tiger hitting out of a rough in front of a hot dog stand or a lemonade stand. There's a lot going on in this photo. And when you talk about like getting a clean background, this is probably not a clean
This
background.
was, this was.
So this is a very unique one. So talk to me about this one.
So this is at the Barclays at Bethpage Black, Sunday. And Tiger just yanked his tee shot way, way left. And, so far left that nobody ever thought there would be a golf ball over there because they put a lemonade stand down
Yes.
there. It's this whole phalanx of photographers in the gallery, and everybody is just storming down. And I don't know why, but for some reason, everybody went over to the side of the ropes where the lemonade stand was and everything. All the photographers, the crowd was all in there. And for some reason, I just said, but this looks just fine right here. Why do I want to go across? I'm just staring at Tiger, and I said,
Right.
all these people, this is the picture. This is not,
Right.
I don't need a clean background of Tiger wedging it out of the rough. This is, the picture is he is in the shit here. This is trouble.
And it's just comical because it looks like he just started. It almost looks like you literally just photoshopped Tiger into like a carnival, or
Right.
like at a state fair.
And that was just it.
Right.
I was going with all the other photographers, and everybody sort of everybody just sort of filed across to get as close to Tiger as they could, and I just kind of stopped and was like, but wait, what? Why do you want to go any farther? I just planted myself, and that was it. It's just I just love the mess of people, and just
I love that one.
Yeah.
This is another one this is the final one in the collection that you just shared that I definitely want to talk about. Obviously there's a lot you're doing on the golf course, but then portraits.
Yeah.
And this is just an incredible. I've seen this photo before. You shared it with me, of Byron Nelson.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm just spending time with him.
Oh.
Because the photo's great, okay, but the photo is probably not your greatest memory from that day.
No.
The photo is just, I did a job.
No, talking to Byron Nelson for an hour and a half in his garage is like the memory of that day. I am so lucky with what I do. Being a fan of the game and appreciating the history of it and everything, just to be able to get to meet people like that is just incredible. And I make no bones about that. But this picture of Mr. Nelson was, we did it in his garage. I was doing a photo essay for Sports Illustrated on former Ryder Cup captains, portrait series. And it was very nice. And I came up to his ranch in Roanoke, Texas, just outside of Fort Worth, and just set up a studio in his garage and shot everything on a 4x5 camera, which, for people who don't know, one sheet of film at a time. It's a very slow, deliberate process. You take the film holder out, you have to look through the ground glass on the back of the camera, focus it, tell your subject to hold still, because now I have to put the film holder in here, and then you take the dark slide out and you wait till your subject has an expression that you want, and you take the shutter, click the shutter, and it's one frame, and then you start the process all over again. The thing that I love about that picture that makes it special is he's got this little curl of a smile starting on his lips, and he's not looking at the camera, which my instruction to him was to look at the camera.
Okay.
But the instant I pushed the button to trip the shutter, his wife, Peggy, walked into the room.
And that's him
and
looking.
That is what happened in that picture.
So that's him,
why
him looking at his wife.
That's him realizing that his wife just walked into the room. Yeah. That's what that's what makes that picture special to me.
So that is not a pose.
No.
That is nothing.
No, my instructing of Mr. Nelson just looked right here at me.
Okay.
And out of the corner of his eye, he saw Peggy walk in, and at the same time as I'm pushing the button.
So let me dig down into this a little bit deeper. You get your instructions from Sports Illustrated. We want Mr. Nelson looking at the camera.
Yeah.
and you get that.
Well, it wasn't necessarily him looking at the camera.
Okay, so you want him facing forward.
It was a portrait photo essay on Ryder Cup captains, and so I had discussed it with my editor. Miriam Marceau was the editor for Golf at the time, and we just wanted to do a series of very nice black and white portraits of all of the living U.S. Ryder Cup captains.
So I guess my question is, when you deliver that back and share this story, do they immediately be like, oh my gosh, yes?
Not really. I mean, it's because they're looking at the film before I am. Don't forget. I send that in and they process it. Okay. So they see all of it before I do. So I really didn't know that I had that until I got my film back from the magazine. Okay. Yeah.
Because I was just curious how the decision was made to go with that one.
Yeah. Well, that's my decision to go with that one on my website. I'm pretty sure they ran that in the magazine.
Yeah, well, I've seen this before. Okay. That's why I was just curious if that story had anything to do with.
So, no, I don't know if that was actually part of the decision, because I don't know if I even told Miriam that story at the time because we were so deadline crunched. But
that makes that photo that much more incredible. Oh my gosh. What you just shared with those photos, I'm really glad you're able to do that, because I think it's great. We're talking about photography, and now listeners can actually see the photo itself, and you share the story. I hope everyone really enjoys that aspect of this episode. We have to talk a little bit about equipment, because a lot has changed. We're talking about film, we're talking about dark rooms, and now literally you can take a picture, hit a button, and it gets wirelessly transmitted from the seventh fairway to an editor in anywhere in the world. Right. So how has technology changed your approach? How has the advent of mirrorless cameras? How has technology kind of changed the way you operate?
Well, it's a huge change. I mean, back to that 1996 Texas Open.
Sure.
The first thing I did at the end of every day was I put all of my film into a box, and I drove to the airport in San Antonio, put it on a commercial flight back to New York, where the Time Life Photo Lab would process it.
Oh my God.
And somebody else would look at it, and I would never see it until they sent it back to us the following week, after the editor had gone through it and kept all the good stuff, and you only saw the bad stuff. Right. So now, at the end of every day, I can sit down and look at my take and see what I'm doing well, what I need to do better, see different angles or possibilities, and maybe I want to try this or that tomorrow. So that's been a huge improvement. The downside to that is it's a lot more work on the back end for me. I'm not just dropping my film off at the airport and going to dinner. I'm uploading, I'm editing, I'm reviewing. I mean, it makes a long day even longer.
Sure.
The new cameras are insane. I mean, I used to shoot Canon, and when Sony came out with a mirrorless system that would work for everything I needed it to work for, I switched. And it used to be that making certain pictures was all about having to like compromise something. Like you could shoot a picture of somebody at the top of their backswing, but with the old DSLRs, you had to, in order to get a silent shutter, you had to single frame it. You had to do live view on the back LCD screen of your camera. You couldn't look through the viewfinder.
Right.
Try doing that on a sunny day. Doesn't happen. Or you could use like a silent point and shoot. Like I remember, in the early 2000s, a bunch of us were doing that. We're running around with these little like Minolta point and shoots and shooting top of the backswing scenics, but you would get a file size that was like 5 megapixels. It was stupid. You couldn't run it as a double truck. Like there was always a compromise that you had to make to do something different. And now there is no, I mean, the same camera, same lens for every kind of picture I could ever want to shoot. They're silent. They're tack sharp. The files are huge. I don't have to compromise on anything.
Right.
So it's completely changed the way, not only that I shoot, but the way that I look at a golf course. When I go out there and I'm like, okay, I can make this picture from behind this tee box now without disturbing the golfer. I used to not be able to.
That's one of the things.
It opens a whole world of possibilities.
Yeah. And the other thing, like for me, like I'm relatively new to the game, but I love the fact that, we both shoot Sony.
Yeah.
You're obviously way further, down the line with experience. But for someone that's new, it helps me get closer, make unique, just so you said, put everything on silent. And for someone that is maybe a little bit inexperienced, I don't have I can immediately see the errors I'm making.
Yeah.
And I can change that right away.
But let's take that a step further, too, because you and I are doing very different things on the golf course. I mean, you're doing still photos, too, but I'm only doing still photos.
Right.
You're doing video.
Right.
You're doing social.
Yeah.
And when you think about it, you and I are pretty much using the same gear.
Right.
So again, to that no compromise thing, if I wanted to start doing some video,
which I know
probably could, so you used to have to carry around a video camera. Or if you wanted to do Instagram Live or Facebook Live, you could only do it on your phone. You couldn't, you didn't have anything that would work for video like, a Sony can do now. Yeah. So, we're not very different in terms of the equipment, but I think it speaks volumes that we're able to do such different things with that same, relatively same equipment.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Talking about, being here at the women's amateur, and obviously there's a 15-year-old girl that's still in the quarterfinals.
Yeah. And, it's amazing.
And I know that you're seeing parents out there all the time, and they got their iPhones, and they're trying to capture it because it's not just them spectating some random tournament. Right. That's their kid.
Yeah.
What is maybe some sort of advice you can give to a parent that would really like to capture a few images of their child playing in one of these tournaments just for their own personal memory? They're not going to have the equipment that you and I have. Do you have any advice for them that they can just kind of capture something? Yeah. I mean, it's honestly, it's just keep an eye out for your backgrounds. Like just move around to get something clean so that it's just your kid. It's not your kid and the ropes and the chair from the volunteer, in the background. Put the sun behind them so that you can see your kid's face the whole time, and use a longer lens. Like you don't need to go buy a 400 2.8, but if you have a 70 to 200, even if it's an f4 to 5.6 zoom, use that like to isolate the player from the background as opposed to, a wide angle and stand there on the tee box and make it look differently. Make the, no pun intended, focus be on the player. Sure. Just use a little bit longer lens, light them the right way. That's it. It's yeah. Before we let you go, we got we have another long afternoon and an evening ahead of us. We got quarterfinal action here at U.S. Women's Am. I love the fact that you not only are doing this as a profession, but you're kind of giving back a little bit with your workshops that you're doing. Yeah. And I think and I saw this great picture that you posted about you with several other photographers in a bunker. And we're going to put a link to your workshops. I want people to kind of get an idea of what you do. But tell the story of how those started and actually the bunker. I love that story. I do this through Summit Workshops, which is I did my first one with them this year. So I just started doing it, and I hope I can do many more. They do a sports photography workshop out in Denver every summer. And I was invited to participate, and I loved it. It's like a family. It's just, I was honored to be asked to teach because the faculty has been at it for a long time. And so I was the new guy this year, which was fantastic. But everybody just is so, they want the students to be better, and they want to help. They want to see these folks succeed. And so they asked me if I would do a golf workshop. As part of it, we do, we go out and we do different setups. They did like motocross, and we did a football game. And, so I helped out with a couple of the other things too. And we do portfolio reviews and image critiques every day. But then we do little, I guess you could call them breakout sessions where we do different sports. And so they asked if I could do golf. And
said, sure. And a place out in Denver called Glenmore Country Club donated their back nine one day and just said, come on out. And I wanted to give the students the experience of what it's like to shoot a tour event, or a tour golfer,
Sure.
what you should look for in terms of framing and composition and lighting and how you can work things on a golf course. And, light is paramount to me. Like, where is the light coming from? How does it affect the picture? How does it affect where you position yourself? And so, we were working on bunker shots, and we found a bunker that was backlit, and we just had everybody get down in there and had our model just keep plugging away.
That's awesome.
So, but we did, tee boxes and fairways and putting and all of that. And I just wanted to show them what different lenses could do, what different lighting situations could do. And I hope that everybody walked away with at least one portfolio picture that they could use.
And when they take the shot and they look in their camera and they have that sense of joy where, hey, I got it.
Yeah.
How much fun. I mean,
it's great. And, we do these portfolio critiques, and and at the end of it, the next day after the teaching sessions, we do image critiques where the students have to put up their 3 best images from whatever session they did the day before. And I would see some of these golf pictures up, where we go to a tee box with some high fescue and the sun behind them, so it's all like this glowing grass. Or I set the golfer up on an island tee, and I wanted to see who got the reflection idea, to do that. And you see the students like shooting the stuff that like I'm trying to get them to see, and that makes me like, yes, you got it. Right. Yes, right. Yeah, good job. So that's exciting to see stuff like that.
That's
like,
awesome.
Not that I told them to shoot that, but I gave them the setup, and let's see who
figures it out,
can see it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
so
awesome.
that was really exciting. I really love doing that. So
this has been a lot of fun. I appreciate the time, and I know we got to get ready for the afternoon. But finally, before I let you go, what's next? What would be a career? Not to say what's the white whale that you're missing in your photography career, but maybe what are some of your goals moving forward? What are things maybe you haven't done yet, or maybe something you want to try? I know you probably want to open a barbecue joint.
Yeah, I do.
Texas.
I would love to open a barbecue joint. I would.
That's a whole. If I had any knowledge of barbecue to your level of knowledge, maybe I can find a barbecue podcaster, because I don't want to be an imposter here. That's a whole other conversation. But what's something that you'd really like to do?
I would love to get more into course photography. One of the things that I've learned a lot about over the years, and not by trying, but just by going to all of these different places, is I've really learned to appreciate golf course architecture and golf course architects a lot more than when I first started out. And so when I go to new courses, I begin to notice like subtle or not so subtle things about different designs and designers. And I would love to be able to do work that showcases that. One of the things that I did during the pandemic was I got my drone license, and I learned how to fly a drone. And I could see, for example, that lending itself to coursework and doing more work like that, as opposed to action work. Not that I don't like what I do, not that I don't love what I do, but if there's one thing I think that's missing from my portfolio as a complete golf photographer,
right,
is the ability to capture the courses that we play, these beautiful courses that we play on, and the design of them, and what makes them different, what sets them apart. So I'd like to do a lot more of that. That would be.
Sounds like you're on your way. Sounds like you're on your way to doing that. Well, hope we can do it again soon.
I hope so.
I hope we're going to bump into each other at many more tournaments down the road. Yeah. And Darren, thanks for stopping by the back of the range.
Ben, thank you.
And there you have it. Special thanks to my guest, Darren Carroll, on this episode. Great information, really great stories. Don't forget, follow along on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Everything you need to know about this podcast, every previous episode, can be found at thebackoftherange.com. We'll see you again next time here at the Back of the Range.